George Pullman was a man of great stature. He achieved prominence in the 1870s for the construction of his gorgeous railway sleeping and dining cars. Pullman created his own little town on the outskirts of Illinois called Pullman, providing a place for the 12,000 men of Chicago families to help fabricate the cars, which helped the men earn money. Pullman looked like a complete and striving town in perfect harmony, but this was only an outer appearance. The Great Depression began to kick in, and the demand for Pullman's train cars plummeted. Because of this, George Pullman lowered the wages of his workers. On May 11, 1894, employees walked off the job in protest. Lowering the wages of workers was a big issue for them because they had already had a boatload of other expenses, like lodging. The workers then turned to the American Railroad Union, led by Eugene Victor Debs. He had a total membership of about 150,000 railroad workers by 1894. Debs called on all the ARU members to refuse to operate trains with Pullman cars. This began the Pullman boycott on June 26, 1894. Within 4 days, 125,000 workers on 29 railroads had quit work. This action brought the nation's rail traffic and commerce to a halt. On June 29, 1894, Debs held a peaceful get-together meeting, but after groups became enraged and set fire to nearby buildings and trains. They also derailed a locomotive. Transportation of goods were halted because strikers were walking off the job, obstructing railroad tracks and threatening and attacking strikebreakers. Thousands of armed deputies and federal troops sent by President Grover Cleveland battled the strikers, courts issuing injunction after injunction, making it legally impossible for strike leaders to continue the strike. New York Times said it was a struggle between the greatest and most important labor organization and the entire railroad capital. The soldiers joined with local authorities in getting the trains to run again. Debs ended up getting arrested, convicted, and sentenced to prison for defiance of court orders. The fighting between workers and police, the use of federal troops, and the jailing of key leaders ultimately caused the defeat of the Pullman workers. The Pullman strike affected the overall welfare of the nation and its citizens, whether it was recognized at the time or not. There was also a vast amount of damages financially suffered by railroads. It was the control that Pullman thought he had over his workers is what led to the bitter labor struggle between him and his employees. At the end, the Pullman Palace workers lost their battle, and the ARU was destroyed. The Pullman strike of 1894 did not achieve what it was set out to do in the area of fair treatment and fair wages, but it still remains as a classic reminder of the labor movement's desire to overcome its endless obstacles.